Hey everyone, it is Tim here, and I'm coming to you today from Ushuaia, which is the southernmost city in the world, right down on the southernmost tip of Argentina, and it feels like I have reached the end of the earth. Hey everyone, I'm Tim, and I've just finished a 9-month odyssey around Latin America. Now I'm reopening my diaries, and this time I'm bringing you along with me. Week by week, country by country, all the colors, all the craziness, all the food, all the music, and all the splendor. 9 months when each morning was a new adventure. The road was my companion, and Latin America cast its spell on me. This is my Latin America Diaries. Welcome back to my Latin America Diaries. In this episode, I'll be taking you way down south, right down to the southernmost city in the world. That's right, from Buenos Aires, we flew out on an Aerolíneas Argentinas flight from Aeroparque George Newbery, which is the downtown option of Buenos Aires' two main airports, all the way down to Ushuaia, landing in over the Beagle Channel. Ushuaia is a place of extremes. It feels very isolated. Lonesome, lonely, way out there on the fringes of the world, near the southernmost point of the South American continent, and officially the southernmost city in the world. We checked into the very cozy Original House Hotel. It was a bit like a chalet, but with several rooms, and somehow each room felt individual and private. And then we headed out to explore the city on foot. The area around Ushuaia is known as Tierra del Fuego. It was originally settled by the Yagan people, who were said to have originally worn no clothes, but instead used fire to keep themselves warm in this harsh environment. It's quite unbelievable to think that when the first encounters between the Yagan people and the European people occurred in this region, the Europeans on their ships would have arrived and seen the whole landscape illuminated by fires used by the local people. The sight of this then gave rise to the region's name Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. Full colonization here really only happened much later, after the establishment of Argentina and during missions by Argentina and the British in 1884. Now Ushuaia is a town of about 82,000 inhabitants. It's an important fishing port and the capital of Argentina's southernmost province, Tierra del Fuego province, which also encompasses the currently British-occupied Falkland Islands, or Malvinas. And Ushuaia is an important jumping-off point for expeditions to Antarctica. They normally begin from around the $10,000 per person mark, so that wasn't on our menu. And besides, that wasn't the point of this trip. We were there to see what life would be like right out there on the edge of the world, and also maybe experience a bit of wilderness and perhaps see some wildlife as well. That evening we had dinner at this rather cool place. Ushuaia does seem to have a bit of a yuppie town vibe, and I think it's a reflection of obviously its isolation, but also the amount of money that flows through this town because of its strategic location of being close to the port where you take boats out to Argentina, and the type of money and clientele that would be involved in those sorts of trips. The next morning we continued walking around the city and taking in the sights, including several shipwrecks right out there on the edge of town. We were also able to see where glaciers were making their slow journey down from the mountains behind the city. On the hillside near the port were some of the original houses built back in the 1890s. The whole area felt very wet, mushy and marshy, and I think that really is just what the region is like. It's kind of weird to be out here on the edge of civilization and see life just going on like this. It's a story of perseverance. Then we made our way back to the hotel to warm up with a hot chocolate. It was pretty cold while we were there, not freezing. I mean, it was March, so it was probably about 10 degrees Celsius during the day, so not freezing, but it was cold. We got back to the hotel just in time to see a couple of ships heading out towards Antarctica or to other islands in the Beagle Channel, and a dramatic storm rolling in over the city, bringing icy rain. Ever since I left Iguazu Falls, the trip had kind of moved from being a largely cultural and overwhelmingly urban experience to being a more natural and environmental one. And watching the storm clouds roll in over Ushuaia that afternoon was exactly the spectacular kind of thing that I had signed up for. For a moment, it almost felt as though the wall of clouds, sleet, and mountains had cut us off from the rest of South America, and therefore the rest of the world. The next morning, we hired a car and then headed out to Tierra del Fuego National Park. It was an easy drive, not far at all from Ushuaia, passing through some really impressive forests. I had imagined the landscape would be much icier, but we were just coming out of the summer, so everything was actually quite green. We made our way towards Lago Roca, a large lake within Tierra del Fuego National Park, which is straddled by the Chilean border. Good morning, and we have just set out from Ushuaia to the Tierra del Fuego National Park. Amit's with me.
Hello.
And where are we walking today?
We are walking towards the border of Chile.
Yes, exactly. So we're about to cross into another country illegally. No, we're not.
Really?
No, we're not. But it's 1.5 hours walk around this lake. And this is basically going to be our experience of the Tierra del Fuego National Park. The forest felt kind of enchanting as we were walking around the edge of the lake, surrounded by moss-covered logs. We even spied a fox at one point. The trail was very clearly marked and easy to follow, and we spotted some other wildlife along the way. We were hoping and praying that the weather wouldn't close in on us, and it didn't. We managed to stay dry the whole time, and it was just a really pleasant walk. There were a few ups and downs through the enchanting forest with all of these moss-covered rocks. It was really lovely. Eventually, we arrived at the Chilean border, which was marked with a very simple sign saying no entrance. So technically I'm not trespassing because I do have a visa for Chile, okay, so... But did I cross over into Chile? Well, that is a question that will remain unanswered. Out in the middle of the wilderness, everything just felt so calm and placid. The sound of the little ripples on the lake lapping up against the shore. And the coordinate marker that delineated the Chilean-Argentine border. After that, we made our way back to the starting point, got back in the car and made our way through the national park, where we realized that we were actually traveling on the Pan American Highway. Now, this point here might not look particularly remarkable, but this is in fact the end point for the Pan American Highway. Now, the Pan American Highway runs the length of the Americas from the very top of North America in Alaska right down to this point here in Tierra del Fuego in Argentina. So this basically is the end point or the start point for one of the greatest journeys on Earth. There are a couple of markers around here. You can see Amit's over there and he's taking pictures of the marker. I think there's a signboard over here as well, which might have stickers and stuff on it. Let's take a look. Something that was really fascinating about this area was just how gentle the water in the lakes was compared to the drama of the landscape around. It's a real contrast, and that's what it feels like to be at the end of the world. Natural drama, but like serene tranquility at the same time, and it's a real juxtaposition, and that's what it's all about. It's remarkable, and we really enjoyed it. As we were leaving, I had to laugh because there was a group of pretty typical American tourists walking around the cul-de-sac at the end of the Pan American Highway, and one of them pointed out a bird that we had spotted and very loudly and excitedly described it as
a cross between a chicken and a hawk. Wow! It's almost like a chicken hawk, right?
Quite. We got back to Ushuaia just in time for the next rainstorm to roll through, and I headed out to a cafe to taste a Submarino. Submarino is an Argentinian specialty. It's basically a chocolate bar submerged in a glass of hot milk, turning it into a very rich hot chocolate. It was pretty good, although I was much more of a fan of that than I was of Fernet con cola, which we tried later that night. Another Argentine specialty, and not really my thing. The next morning, we flew out of Ushuaia and began our journey north with spectacular views out of the plane window as we flew over Tierra del Fuego with the Atlantic Ocean in the distance. Now, if you think that we're traveling at breakneck speed at this point, you would be absolutely right. And that was because Amit was traveling with me and he was on a fairly limited schedule, and we wanted to see as much as possible with the time that he had there. So we would often get into places, visit, and then get straight out again. And just like that, our time at the end of the world had come to an end. But wait, there is more. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload new videos from this series. And if you really like what you're seeing, please share it across your social media channels and tell your family and friends about it. It would really mean a lot to me, and it helps me grow this YouTube channel. We were on our way to Argentine wine country, the city of Mendoza, which sits in the shadow of the Andes mountain range. Mendoza sits right on Argentina's western border with Chile. However, there are no direct flights from Ushuaia, so you have to travel via Buenos Aires again. Arriving in Mendoza, we got into the Hualta Hotel, which we had booked into, but we were told that they were overbooked. Instead, we were going to be transferred to the connected and adjacent Sheraton Mendoza. Fine by me. The next morning, we woke up and headed out to see the city. We walked through the city center and then headed towards Parque General San Martín, a beautiful park in the western end of the city. The dappled sunlight filtered down through the huge trees lining the roads. Local Mendozans were out enjoying their weekend in the warm, dry weather, and the smell of empanadas wafted from food trucks. It was truly beautiful, and one of those days that just remind you of why you travel and how life on the road is simply better. As we arrived at the park, we arrived just in time to experience an Argentine military plane aerial display that was going on. Trust us to turn up just as something like that was happening. It seems to be something that we, or I do. We sort of seem to arrive just as like the event is happening. I mean, it's almost serendipitous. I really liked Mendoza. Mendoza really had a great vibe about it. The local people seemed really friendly. The weather is like this gorgeous Mediterranean climate. This was really what I was looking for. And I think that this is maybe what I was missing in Buenos Aires earlier. I mean, Buenos Aires is just that much bigger of a city, but, and I don't know, when we were there, it was pretty cold and windy and grey, but when we got to Mendoza, the skies cleared up and it was just gorgeous. And I think Mendoza would probably be probably my favorite city in Argentina that I visited. We spent that afternoon going from winery to winery. Mendoza, or Argentina, but particularly the Mendoza region, is known for producing some of the highest quality wines in the world, and it's especially famed for Malbec, which we happily sampled, along with an interesting non-alcoholic grape soda that was really lovely. A rich yet healthy and refreshing lunch at this winery was exactly what the doctor ordered. Walking around the vineyards, soaking up the sun's rays, especially after being so cold in Ushuaia, and with the backdrop of the Andes Mountains, it was just perfect. This is the center of so much viticulture in Argentina, something the country is really well known for. The story goes that winemakers from France migrated to this part of Argentina, brought their vines with them, and the rest is history. That day was St. Patrick's Day, and as we walked around the city that evening, any bar that was worth its salt was putting green dye into its beers and serving them up to thirsty, reveling locals. This part of the trip, we were moving very fast, but we experienced extremes, from the chic, cosmopolitan streets of Buenos Aires to the subantarctic extremes of Ushuaia, walking through pristine wilderness, to the humble yet welcoming ambience of Mendoza and its historic vineyards in the shadow of the Andes. It had been a very, very quick couple of days, but for me, it was absolutely one of the highlights. If you would like to see more of the Andes Mountains, make sure that you tune in again next time, because next time on Latin America Diaries, we will be crossing them in one of the most spectacular bus trips that I have ever taken.